family was one that was very much involved in education. HL Christian went to London University, LM had a music school, and they were very much dedicated to education. And all of you are invited on Thursday, here, 6 p.m., where the African Christian family is coming. What if I told you that the first woman lawyer in the history of Ghana was a Dominican heritage, the daughter of George James Christian, or grandmother. The lead drafts woman for all the laws of Ghana, Esther Lapierre, who wrote the book with the Trinidadian Margaret Rouse Jones, granddaughter of George James Christian. The former ambassador to the United Nations, Frederick Christian, again, Dominican heritage. And on and on and on. So we as Dominicans have gone overseas and done great things. And so we thought, when the 1960s came up, we wanted to have our rights as black people respected. And I see my brother Errol Emmanuel with his dashiki. I bought a dashiki to come down, but Seaborne Airlines still have it. Yeah, in my close base today. And I'm very well taken care of because I see that Mr. Levy has his little dashiki as well, Afro shirt. And we started wearing Afro shirts. But my father was from another time. He'd been in the British Army. My father was a policeman, like his father was. And when Wellsworth started doing Afro, he said, not in this house. We don't have any black boy in this house. And I don't know if anybody remember Kay Peters. Kay Peters was my father's, she was my grandson Peters. It's Kay Christian. She was my father's older sister, who's 97 in Scotland now, Ruby's daughter with a British Army officer. So she was highly colored. So she grew up with Auntie Floss, who was a teacher in Bellevue, where they sent Wellsworth to do his high school exam, common entrance. He came second. But they got into a fierce argument, and we had to send for Auntie Kay to cool them down. That's how hard it was in Dominica. And when I got into grammar school, there's a friend of mine, Laurel Joseph, I think you know Laurel, who's a beekeeper now. Laurel came to the house with dreadlocks. I was inside the house, my father was on leave, he was watering the plants with a hose. It was the time of the notorious Bread Act. And he saw the gentleman, he says, what do you want? He says, I'm here to see Gabriel. He says, what's your name? He says, my name is Laurel Joseph. He says, what's that bush on your hair? He says, it's a style, it's called dreadlocks. He said, are you one of the marijuana boys? Laurel muttered something, and then he said, Charlie Mopia's father was a policeman, he knows exactly what I'm talking about. He says, Gabriel is not here. Move along, and don't you ever come back here anymore. And I was on the inside, you know. I was on the inside and so on, and I stayed, you know, quiet until he left, and then I came out and told my father he'd embarrassed me. That was my friend and so on. He said nothing. But as I got old, I understood what was going through his mind. Because as a cadet, and I will show you one of the pictures shortly in my days as a cadet, we would draw our rifles down at 1,500 hours from the police arsenal to come to practice on the parade ground while Dr. Andre then at that time, otherwise known as Lape, looking from the hostel at the cadets. And when I returned one afternoon with a platoon of maybe a company of 30, we marched the police headquarters to deposit our rifles on the ground. No shirt, no shoes. Bloody and muddy. It was the corpse of a dread who had been shot and killed in one of the battles in the 1970s. Under the platform there, or the barracks there, was Jojo Karam, Mayor Rosa with his machine gun, all muddy, his boots muddy, Lennox Ray, Joshua James, Scary James, both from Mariga. And that was about it. And then they stopped bringing the bodies down because people would gather in front of the police station and it would be very, very disturbing. So they would just, after a while, they just left the bodies in the hills. We had a war here. And I was right in the middle of it because as cadets, we were part of the armed forces. And I'll tell you about a famous camp that we had with Malcolm Reed, Frederick Newton, Howell Piper, Ashton Benjamin, Scary James, and the former commissioner, Matthias Lestrada, was a corporal. It's 1974, it's the height of the Dread War. I'm a bandsman, I'm a bugler. and there's to be a church parade, so they brought us along. We got dumpers from Public Works, and we go in through town, and people say, oh, Babylon, look at you, Babylon. Anybody knows what Babylon is? What's Babylon? 1974, again, not trying to use anything that is not less, the Queen's English, but the song in 1974, there are two songs. Massa Day is done, black man have the crumb, black man sweeter than white man, black man stronger than white man. I'm not sure whether that was Soames or Caterer. Somebody will help me out who's of that age group. And the crowd created its own song, which was, we don't want no Babylon, we don't want no Babylon, we don't want no Babylon. Babylon is total, total. Well, there's an F word that I think I've done enough this afternoon. I'm damaged this afternoon to my character, so I'm not going to. But that was the sort of ferment in the community. So we go to the camp, we're keeping guard. I'm giving a lane field with 5 rounds. And the police special service unit and the defense force have gone on night exercises, and it's about 1 o'clock, and I have the rifle, and I'm keeping guard. And I see Malcolm Reed, then a lieutenant, coming to the La Plaine police station, which is where we're camping on the ground. And I knew Reed because we would have parades, National Day parades, so I knew who he was, but I had to go through the motions. I said, halt, who goes? Password, portage. And he just said, oh, you F off. I just brushed past him. I said, yes, sir. I'm a cadet, and I just F'd off myself, and I just went in. The next day is something that I will never forget. We took out our belts and our caps and our accoutrement, put our musical instruments aside. Professor Patrick John, HL Christian, the whole cabinet, Warner Hill, SSU and Defense Force formed the riot squad, and we were rioters. We were throwing little pebbles, little tufts of grass, nothing. It's play acting. And Leonard Troy reads out the riot act. They put the banner up that says, smoke or we disperse or we smoke. And they opened fire with blanks and with smoke grenades, not tear gas. And I was arrested by a defense forceman called Dodal. Pond. Well, not really arrested, just, play acting, and then we had lunch. I remember we had rice with corned beef and onions. And we went back to Roseau. That was 1974. 4 years later, as a student at the 6th floor, under the tutelage at that time of people like Kay Polidor, the principal, and Levy. I was with Ricky Alport, I don't know whether Richard was in country, Dexter Francis, and the others, at the May 29th riot. But the same people who had camped with a 14-year-old cadet laying next to. By that time, Skerritt had been killed. Skerritt was killed in a shooting incident with Lennox Roy. They were night exercises, and the machine gun went off and riddled Skerritt in the groin. They sent him to Boone, Jamaica, University Hospital, and he perished after very difficult surgery. I was at the parade. This was the last parade I went on with my father. Lennox was gotten rid of. He went to New York, and then you have the riot on May 29th. And we know what happens. Julius Timothy is killed, and the government is changed after the general strike led by the Committee of National Salvation. Philip Timothy, what did I say? Julius. Philip Timothy, sorry. Julius is still with us. Yes, Philip Timothy. My friend, Charlie Beaupé knows because we lived in the 1960s on Boys Avenue. Mr. Beaupé's father was the governor's chauffeur. I can see him, he looks very much like his father. And we go on the power right here with Philip, and we go up to Champagne and Silver Lake, come down on tubes. So when Brian Allen saw me, he held me back, or I could have been shot, but here was Philip lying dead. So it was a very serious time, and I mention those times because sometimes when I've talked on radio and I'm very charged and I'm very emotional. I'm emotional because I've seen Dominica at its best, and I've seen Dominica at its worst. Neither Sam, myself, or anybody here wants any trouble in Dominica. We want our people to have a sense of our history, to have our polarities correct, to understand that where we do not create the space for competing ideas, for democracy, for rule of law, for commissions of inquiry, then we create the conditions for uprising. People in Haiti and other countries that have not understood that, Venezuela of late, they rule the day. Because who wants to go and invest in a country where people are fighting each other? Who wants to visit a country where people are fighting each other? So when we have said commission of inquiry, we are dealing with our tradition. Let me give you an example. In 2006, Irving did the biography of Dr. McIntyre. And I was in Dominica with Brandon Cole, whose grandfather worked with Dr. King. He's African American, his parents are church people with the African Methodist Episcopal Church. Do you know why there's an African Methodist Episcopal Church? So the Africans enslaved in America, the African Americans, in the early days the Methodists wouldn't accept them. In the early days the Episcopalians would not accept them. So they said, okay, to heck with it, we'll form the African Methodist Episcopal Church, AME. It's now one of the wealthiest African American congregations with budgets of 10, 20 million. They just bought 2 buildings, one for 20 million, one for 10 million recently. And this young man was with me, and we went and we met Dr. Andre. And he pulled me aside, Kathy's uncle, the late great surgeon, Dr. Donald Desmond McIntyre. Wonderful piece of work, you must all get it. It tells you about the Irish, the Scottish Irish. You look at Kathy there, she's Scottish Irish African. Very, very interesting story.
Sure he's not Indian.
Sam, I will sign before you leave. Yeah. 1 second, Sam. Just give me 1 second. And he pulls me aside and tells me, Gabe, guess what I got? I said, well, he says, I got the Commission of Inquiry report into the 1963 Cannibal. That report by Justice Selmanad, the commissioner from Grenada, had the names of all those who were wounded. It had all of the evidence, at least the summary that was taken. Had the British not empaneled, the administrator was Colonel Lovelace, a commission would have been at sea. We would not have had the framework upon which to do the research, because once we had the names of the witnesses, those who were living, what did we do with it? We contacted them. But can you imagine if the fire had taken place and nobody had done anything and it was Tara told Tara this and hearsay and the oral tradition? Nothing. But because we had a protocol that said that when you have matters in controversy in society, you empanel a commission. Commission means you take evidence under oath, subpoena witnesses, you make recommendations to prevent the reoccurrence of whatever it is being complained about. You make a book, you make a deposition transcript, you have a brief that's prepared. You may recommend prosecution. Anybody there yet? Any riot yet? No. Any shooting? Any house burning? Any breaking of windows by the Muslim store? Any shooting of tear gas? It's clear as day that as I looked at Commandante Pinres, I went online and there was nothing on that program where the people who made the Grenada Revolution were there. The future Prime Minister of Guyana was there, President Ramota was there. The future Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Minister St. Lucia, Mario Mitchell, slept right next to me. Mario Mitchell of St. Lucia, who later became Deputy Prime Minister. Nobody had taken the time to write anything about it. So I decided to write about the trip, but I could not talk about the trip in isolation. So I decided to talk about what took place before the trip, about the movement for New Dominica, the return of Rosie Douglas, the Dread War, the ferment about radical ideas. We are going into independence, so we become a socialist country. I remember Raymond Lawrence saying to me, well, you know, this independence thing is a good idea, you know, but what about Idi Amin? In those days, there was a guy called Idi Amin. Mr. Paris, remember who Idi Amin was? Uganda. A fierce and ruthless leader who destroyed Uganda and took it many years to come back. I remember when I was in 5th form, we did biology with a book produced by Makerere University, Kampala. Makerere University was considered the Harvard of East Africa. Idi Amin came into that school and he decimated hundreds of the professors. Who those he didn't kill, they ran away. So the point that Raymond Ross is making to me was that independence itself was a good idea, but it was no panacea. That it was not given that we were going to succeed. We've been able to hold on to it, albeit with great difficulty. And my hope is that by reading this book, you can see that we're tussling, we're grappling with ideas as to how do we structure ourselves. And I believe at the end of the day, I'm going to say this before Sam goes because it's important he remains here. And that is, we have to look at what allowed Britain to succeed. And I'll conclude with this. Confirmed anti-colonial that I am, I respect the British tradition because that is part of our heritage. It's as simple as that. I make no apologies for it. We're going to a soccer game with my son. BBC comes on. I listen to BBC at least once a day. Why? Because they have a reputation for, they're not perfect, but for what? Balance. So the guy says, it's 1500 hours Greenwich Mean Time. Anybody ever heard that?
Yes.
So I asked my son, Conan, do you know what Greenwich Mean Time is? He says, is that Good Morning Television? I said, no, son. I said, it's a town in England called Greenwich, where the Royal Observatory was set up in 1675. 1675. And in the 1870s, it was in that town that the British convened an international committee to decide upon timekeeping. Right. Now, if I call a meeting for timekeeping, I'm not sure how many people come. But the British issued an invitation, and the world nations of importance at that time, they came because they had had about 200 years of systematic study of the stars and the meridians and longitude and latitude and so on. And they set up a system of timekeeping. Why is that important? It's the same thing the Poncasi Press has tried to do for 25 years, set up the protocol and the apparatus for the keeping of the history of our time